Welcome to the Independence by Design podcast, where we discuss what it means to be a business owner and ways to get unstuck from the day-to-day so we can design a business that gives us a life of independence. Geoff, welcome. Thank you so much. I'm so pumped. I've hit record. We both just shared a horror story about that.
Glad to be here, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
I thought a lot about how I wanted to frame this up, and honestly, even using AI, I plugged in your PDF, I plugged in my riff with GPT or my transcript, and I was trying to figure out how to tee this up, because what I was struggling with, Geoff, and AI couldn't even actually help me figure this out, is I want to geek out with you on like the highest level in AI, but yet everybody listening in is going to be like, what the heck are they talking about? So trying to balance those two.
Go where you want to go. I'm good. I'd rather teach to the top of the class, and I can immediately bridge it for the person that doesn't even know how to spell AI.
How do you dial 911? All right, let's do this. So
people, they're like, I don't even know how to spell AI. I'm like, you're perfect. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. So here's what I was thinking. Because I saw you on Robert Breedlove's podcast. Unbelievably fascinating. I think my head hurt from nodding so much. And a couple of things that caught my attention right away, because I was like, this is how I'm using it. And I just can't believe that Geoff is speaking my language.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of giving you a little bit of 2 cents on the boardroom playbook that I created for the owner. What I realized over the last 10 years is like the first principles and the importance of constraints and the importance of clearly understanding our goal with the highest nuance. And knowing that the AI can also help us come up with our goal. And you've probably got comments on that. But what I find so fascinating is the amplification of how fast we can get where we want to go when we are clear of our goals. And it's insane to me. And like, so like a couple of the notes, and we can take these and just riff on all this for the conversation. But it was like thinking. I mean, it's really about thinking. In your book, I thought was very fascinating how you teed it up about being a leader, because being a leader is about thinking. So I don't know if we want to just start there.
Yeah, sure. Well, why don't we? I have to give the context of how I even got there.
Yeah, let's do it.
Then it'll why being a thought leader with AI matters. My senior year of college, I'm doing an internship, Ryan, and I sit down with the CEO right before I graduate, and I asked him what job he thought I should get after school. And he looks at me and he says, Geoff, you're asking the wrong question. You should be asking, what are the skills I can master that are so valuable, they'll serve me no matter where I go? Then go find jobs that will help you build those skills. First time in my life, Ryan, that I was introduced to the power of asking the right questions.
That's so good.
It was also the best career advice I've ever received.
Mm-hmm.
He suggested, based on personality, I go into sales, which I had a great sales career, but wanted to get into business ownership. You ever read The One Thing?
So yes, and I want you to give your background on that. And that's another reason when I was like, well, listening to you, I was like, holy shit. Because when I read The One Thing, it was 11 years ago. I was on the way to Colorado. And because I'm a flashy object guy, and it was like, what's the one thing that'll make everything else easier? And in my owner's playbook, every 90 days, because the EOS has got rocks, and I didn't want to, borrow off of that term. And I was like, before I listened to you, I call the 90-day one thing, and then I break it into 3 milestones. So like,
cool,
more power to you, man. So like, give the context of what that means to you.
Yeah. So the One Thing is a very popular business book. Gary Keller, who started Keller Williams, is the lead author. His co-author is Jay Papasan. The book was taken off like a rocket ship. They wanted to turn it into a company. The problem was Gary's One Thing was running Keller Williams. Jay's One Thing was writing books with Gary. I got into relationship with them and was able to partner. The three of us literally partnered, formed a company, and my One Thing became The One Thing. So I learned all of Gary's models and systems for scaling companies, which KW is a multi-billion-dollar company.
That's awesome. His story is cool.
That's a good education. And a lot of what ended up happening was I had to master a very valuable skill: asking leaders the right questions to get them to think bigger and more clear than they've ever thought before. And so I started driving strategic offsites for some of the largest companies in the world. And, they'd walk in with like 20 plus pages of stuff they want to do. And by the time we walk out of the room, they have one page, like one focused page. Yeah. being able to ask leaders the right questions to get them to think more strategically and more clear and bigger to achieve greater goals, that became a superpower of mine. I sold my stake in the company in 22, and I got a call from a client called Jindal Steel. Naveen Jindal is the chairman. This is a global steel company, about 100,000 people around the world. I had been his coach and the coach for his whole executive team when I was with The One Thing. And he calls me, he goes, "Hey, what are you going to do next?" I go, "I don't know. I got a 2-year non-compete. I'm ready to take 2 years off if I need to, but we'll see." And he goes, "Why don't you come in-house?" So they're set up vertically integrated, like a family office, own a ton of companies. They were all playing very siloed. And I saw an opportunity that if you established a holding company that really identified the drivers of growth that could drive them through every operating company, maybe you could make the whole portfolio grow. And so I stepped in as chief growth officer over all of them. And I started focusing on 4 drivers: strategy, execution, people, and technology. Strategy was about working with every opco to define the competitive advantage you're building. Most don't know. If you said, "Tell me what your future competitive advantage is," they don't know. Now bring AI into the mix when it's going to change everything you know about your company.
No kidding.
Whatever moat you thought you had, you have to ask the question if it's still defensible.
Mm-hmm.
Let's define that. Then execution. What's the focused business plan in alignment with our strategy that we're staying focused on? Then people. I had this realization. The reason we hire people is to achieve our goals. Goals change every year, if not faster. Job descriptions do not. How do you realign a workforce dynamically throughout the year as priorities and goals shift? Well, the only way you could do that is if you look at technology. And that's when it was December of 22 when I saw ChatGPT for the first time. I mean,
what was your experience? Yeah, well,
first, it had only been out 2 weeks. It was the morning of I had pulled every C-suite leader around the world into Delhi for an offsite to define the future of leadership for the Jindal organization. It was the morning of the offsite, and one of my colleagues leans over and goes, "Hey, have you heard of ChatGPT?" He says it in like this thick Polish accent. And I go, "No, what's that?" And he literally showed me and started typing. And Ryan, when I saw that, I saw the future.
I love it so much.
I knew instantly that was a skill worth mastering. But I had all the limiting beliefs that I think most people listening to this had, which is, "I'm busy, I'll get to it later," or, "You know what, I'll delegate that to IT," or, "Can I just hire a consultant to come do it for us?" But something said, "I think this is worth leading." And I just made a commitment. I'm just going to start using it once a day. The problem was I was asking myself all the wrong questions. I was asking, how do I use this like a Google? Or how do I use this to write a better email? And it felt like a complete waste of time. But something inside said, I was asking, what if it wasn't the tech, Geoff? What if it was you? And that's when I realized my whole career has been defined by asking leaders the right questions to get them to unlock greater thinking and growth. Here I am asking AI questions. Could I get AI to ask me the right questions? And that was the game changer. That's when I realized my role is to be the thought leader in terms of writing the prompt, giving it the context, telling it the role, asking it to interview me to what task I wanted to complete, which ended up becoming my CRIT framework.
Yeah, I was just saying we'll get into that.
Interview task. And AI is my thought partner. It's there to process the information of the world, to help me see what I don't see. And the moment I figured out how to dance that dance, game over. I showed the chairman how I was using this on one of my trips to India. And he goes, "This is incredible." I go, "Yeah, it's the future." And he goes, "I agree." I said, "I think we should drive it through the whole company." He goes, "I agree." I said, "I think this is so important. You should drive this as chairman of the board." And he goes, "I disagree. How about you do it?" Now, this was like that moment. I felt like the heavens had opened up from above me. Like, you kidding? You're going to put me in charge of AI for a company of this size?
What a cool sandbox.
Yeah, one problem. I know nothing about AI. But something I learned from Gary Keller is that anytime you're hitting a ceiling of achievement, you're just missing a person. I found myself, Ryan, asking, how can I drive this through our company? Wrong question. Who can I get in a relationship
who,
with?
not how. Yep.
Who, not how. Who can I get into a relationship with that could enable me? That became Google. And so I started working with them. We had a partnership. I learned a lot about how to drive it. But then I realized everybody's focus was backwards. They're going, "We got to adopt AI." Why? Because we got to adopt AI. Why? It's not technology first, strategy second. It's strategy first, technology second. But nobody was talking about the difference that makes the difference, which is the leader. And so January of 24, I resigned, wrote The AI Driven Leader. It's now the #1 book in the world for its category, and have built a company called AI Leadership that shows leaders how you harness artificial intelligence to get you to think more strategically and take more focused action so you drive enterprise value and build a competitive advantage.
So awesome. Lot of things to unpack there. And so a couple, I'll plant it so I don't go off the rails for everybody listening in, is I'll plant a couple of seeds and then we can make sure that we're kind of looping them back. So I do it for myself a little bit is, we talked about thinking and strategic thinking. I want to jump into that. You mentioned something too about the holdco and how that was driving. I want to unpack that. And then, the reframing that you had with yourself, I think was fascinating. So let me start just real quick on a comment about the holdco. And what I find fascinating is, so you and I were talking before we hit record about, I was bad at school, and I actually have on my notes too that you talked about the Rockefeller Assembly and like why education is so dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And I think I had my own experience with that, and I ended up teaching myself so much over the last 10 years because of the podcast, what I've been doing. And when I got to the first principles, Geoff, is like, really the whole world is run off of money, and the internal rate of return of assets is the game. That's what the game of capitalism that we live in, whether you like it or not. It's like, hey, this is like generating more cash flow is the name of the game. But the way that we generate cash flow, and I got to this with this really smart guy in finance, it's we bring value to the world by spending time. So we like, if you think about your company, if you even think about a P&L, like our teams spend time doing things, delivering a value to the world. And after it flows through the cost of goods and the overhead, it lands in, and hopefully we have more cash flow, but that's a byproduct of the value that we spend.
Yes.
So there was this whole big, this first principles that I got to where we have to understand that is the ultimate driver. And like the income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow statement, even though I wasn't a finance guy, it's like, well, we can imagine what our company will look like in 4 years. And then we have to think about, okay, well, how will that generate? What value are we determining that we're spending our time creating? How will that generate cash flow? And then the ability to swim towards that. So like when you said something about the whole co, it's like, well, that's what a family's goal is, right? Yes. How do we grow this whole portfolio? And you had vehicles, the companies, to do so. And then it kind of just, my point is I see this through line the whole way, which is, how do you see that playing into the boardroom and like, how you're talking about strategy?
Yeah. What if the biggest threat to your business wasn't your competition, but it was how you were thinking?
I think that's gold.
I believe your ability to think strategically is the difference between growing your business or going out of business. Because how you think drives how you act, and how you act drives the results you get. This is the through line for me. And this is core to what I did at Jindal, which proof's in the pudding. I didn't mention this. Over a 4-year period, we grew the market cap of one company from 750 million to $12 billion. That's
so cool.
That's the public company. I can't say what the private companies did. They all grew, and these aren't small companies. So I share that because what I'm saying actually has a track record of results. From my experience, whether you go from boardroom to C-suite to officer level down the chain, you have people that think strategically and you have people that think tactically. And it's not like an on or off switch. It's a spectrum. Where if they're a 1, they're all the way tactical. If they're a 10, they're all the way strategic. And it shows up at different times at different levels. I think we all have an opportunity to raise how strategically we think and the questions that we ask ourselves. I think AI is a very powerful tool for this. That's what we've built an entire business around. And the reason I say that is because it's so tough to read the label when you're inside the box.
I love that analogy that you keep bringing up. Yeah.
And here's what I mean by that. Ryan, I see a crap ton of books behind you. How many books do you think you've read in your life?
Probably about 500.
Cool. Imagine every single word on every single page. What percent of that collective knowledge can you recall and apply right now?
Oh, I know. It's insane. Probably a single digit percentile, and hopefully it's the big concepts and the first principles, but it's still limited.
Yeah. Me, I'm probably like 0.1.
Yeah.
But the point is, look at how successful we've been based on our ability to remember and recall and apply the minority of what we've learned, which is the minority of the information of the world. That's how we operate as humans. So current boards, that's how they operate. Current leadership teams, that's how they operate. Their ability to recall and apply the percentage of what they've learned, which is the percentage of the information of the world. Now draw a line and look at AI.
It's everything.
It's been trained on 200 to 500 million books worth of data so far. It can recall and apply 100% of it. And how long does it take it to comb through 200 to 500 million books, all the pages, all the words for your specific request, and start generating an answer?
Like
Under a second.
Yeah.
This is what it means for you as the human to be the thought leader, but to engage AI as a thought partner. It's no longer as a board about asking what are the future competitive threats or the things that could put us out of business, or how is the market, where have we had shifts in the market that could challenge our competitive positioning. And just based on your ability to research and recall information, you can now tap into the greatest processing powerhouse of data in human history and harness it for your advantage. The problem is people have been looking at AI as something to replace Google or as something to write better emails. You want it to be your Google email? Your Google, great, it'll do it. You want it to help you write a better email? Go for it. I'm here to help you raise your standards. What would it look like?
Which is that strategic thinking, and I think you call out, right. And I think there's a couple of things that are worth highlighting. The thought partner versus you being the thought leader. So yeah. Why don't you explain that? Because I want to continue double clicking on strategic thinking and how this plays into this.
And this loops back to the question of, will this replace us or will this enhance us? The answer is it depends.
Mm-hmm.
What does it depend on? Depends on you. If you think about a car, one of you is going to be in the driver's seat and one of you is going to be in the passenger seat. What most people don't realize is that most people are allowing AI to be in the driver's seat and they're in the passenger seat. They ask AI to write an email, they copy and paste the answer without any thinking, without any oversight, any judgment, any feedback. AI is replacing them. The opportunity is to say, I, as the human, am the thought leader. I'm in the driver's seat, meaning I'm going to dictate the prompt and what I want AI to do in the context I'm going to give it. AI is going to do all the processing and like the tactical work, but it's going to bring it back to me. I'm not just going to copy and paste, and I'm not going to trust it because AI makes things up. I'm going to give it my feedback. I'm going to assert my judgment. I'm going to tell it what I like about it, what I don't like about it, the top changes I want to it, and then have it do it again. And then when I think it's good enough, that's just based on what I think is good enough.
Then yes, but it's so awesome.
But how about you then wait? So let me give you real answer. Let me think of a good one. Okay. This was last week. We have been focused on an offering for larger companies, like up to enterprise. And we had the vision in our head, and I went to AI and I wrote CRIT. Context, role, interview, task. My team had already put together a deck. I thought it sucked. So I uploaded the deck and I wrote CRIT. context, here's the deck, here's the offering. And literally, I'm in voice mode. Like, I'm just talking. These are the type of clients this is for. Here's the vision of the product. Here's what it would do. Blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm really casting the vision of what we would do. When I look at the current deck that you have access to, I think it sucks. I don't think we're clearly articulating what's in it for the customer. I don't think every slide is compelling. I don't think there's a clear ROI. Like, I'm giving it all of my feedback. And when I was done, I said, okay, roll. Your role is to act as the greatest salesperson in the world whose specialty is creating tight slides that are succinct, clear, powerful, compelling, so that a CEO would be engaged and by the end would want to buy. Interview me. This is the key. I turned the tables. Interview me. Ask me one question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context out of my head that I have not shared with you yet. Then your task is to give me feedback on every single slide. What's strong, what's weak, how we need to make it better. And based on that, I want you to regenerate the content that should go on every single slide. It did it. And I'm like having this back and forth with it. When I thought it was good enough, this is when things get wild. I then said, great. Now act like the CEO. You're the CEO of this company. They do $300 million a year in revenue this year. They got a 13% EBITDA margin. They're struggling because they're not performing the way they need to. And if they don't take the company from X to Y in the next 3 years, they're actually going to lose control of the company. You view this as the potential linchpin to secure the future of your company. I want you, but I don't want you to be nice. I want you to be the challenger. I want you to be tough on me. You are skeptical. You trust no one. I want you to give me feedback on the deck. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? How do I make it better? And then restructure every single slide so that even you, who's the biggest crotchety crotch in the world, would say, I'm doing that deal. Like that. I literally talk that way to AI, by the way.
Yeah. There's amen. I could come up with so many, because I'm using it literally from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, minus my calls with clients or podcasts. And there's this, so I love how you put a framework to it, because I think when I read your book and was watching your podcast, I realized I was doing that by accident because of my natural behavior. But I think you've made it accessible for the people that, again, elevating these people into strategic thinking.
It's and because you think more strategically naturally.
Well, and I think there's a place here, and we'll come back to then the big picture of, like, the strategies and, like, deploying this throughout organizations, leveling up executives and stuff. I think it's worth talking a little bit about the education and, like, why I think this is such a rampant problem. Because, like, I was talking to one of my clients, Geoff, and, like, with the material that I've been building for people, like they put all these mechanical things in place, and then what happens is we have to get people to do all these things, and we're disproportionately missing a bunch of thinkers. Even I'm talking people that are $200,000 in the C-suite, and they're looking for someone to tell them what to do. And when I've said to everybody, I'm like, if your job is to gather information and give it to someone else, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me add one more context to this. Is I think, and maybe that was a little harsh. It's just because it's the coming up with that vision and the thinking. But when you said in your book, because we were talking about rote memory, and I was very bad at school. I have some form of dyslexia, most likely, because I can't write. And that's another one of the things with GPT. I was like, oh my God, for the first time I can actually communicate with the world, because I pull up a memo on my Mac and I just talk, because it's the best accurate dictation that I see. And then I copy paste the transcription. So it's just talking. But the rote memory of the system of, like, Rockefeller, the assembly line, you want to explain that? I thought it was so enlightening. Because why do we have so many people that can't do what we're talking about?
Sure. When I was writing the AI-driven leader, I knew I had to talk about job displacement, because it's the big thing that people are worried about. And I remember I'm standing in my office and I'm thinking, okay, history repeats itself. We've been here before. It's not the first time technology has disrupted things. And so I went back in history and I just started studying the major technological shifts in history, from steam engine printing press, steam engine, assembly line, electricity, internet. I came across this awesome story about John D. Rockefeller. 1900, we're in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. Factories are booming everywhere. And he sees a huge problem. Kids coming out of school weren't learning the skills they needed to win in an industrial world. So he decides to take action. 1902, he starts something called the General Education Board, and he seeds it with $1 million. And over 20 years, he ends up giving over $100 million, which is $3.7 billion today. What in the world was he hoping to accomplish that he would invest that sum of money? He wanted to reshape the public education system to teach kids the skills required to win in an industrial world. What were those skills? Show up to school on time, take direction from a teacher, do something repetitively with minimal error with maximum efficiency. And if you do it well, you get a good grade, and one day you can get a good job. So that what?
So you can put parts together.
So you can show up to work on time, take direction from a boss, do something repetitively with minimal error with maximum efficiency, so you can get promoted, make more money, and one day live a good
life.
Here was my realization, though, because if you study what life was like before the Industrial Revolution, things were made by craftsmen. There was true artisanship. There was ownership from start to finish. There was creativity. There was problem solving. There was strategic thinking. And my realization was, oh my gosh, we had to set aside our humanity to start acting like machines in the Industrial Revolution. And that's when it hit me. Who's better at acting like a machine? A machine. And now think about AI. If you think about your job as outputs versus outcomes. Output, write this message, draft this memo, do this task, pull this report. If it's an output, AI is going to make that skill obsolete.
Mm-hmm. I would concur with that.
If your focus is outcomes, drive revenue, drive EBITDA, drive customer satisfaction, drive renewal rates, launch a new product offering, I believe AI does not replace that.
Agreed.
I believe you stay in the driver's seat and it enhances it, but this is where we have to start taking a look at what we do and recognize that I think, well, I won't make a statement, I'll ask this question. How much of your day-to-day is you focusing out on outputs, and how much of your day-to-day is you focusing on outcomes? Wherever those outputs are, let's assume at a bare minimum, it's going to be augmented, meaning AI is going to start helping you do it. To the extreme, it's going to make it go away. It's going to replace it. And this is when I realized, Ryan, a job, it's a formula. A job is skills you apply and processes you follow.
I like that.
That's it. It's skills you apply and processes you follow. Throughout history, technology will do what technology will do. It will make certain skills less valuable, and it will make certain skills more valuable.
Amplification.
It will make certain processes less valuable and certain ones more valuable. This is where you have to say, detach yourself from what is my job today and start looking at it as a series of skills and tasks, or skills and processes, and start to identify where you think things will go down in value and give yourself permission to let go of those. Because you want to ask the question, which ones are going up in value? It's like stock. If you got a stock that's going down and you think it's going to keep going down, you sell it and you reinvest it in a stock you think is going to go up. Start treating yourself like a stock.
I like it. So a couple that, before we hit record, we were talking about I want to unpack, how do we do this knowing the inertia of the schooling system that is producing products of people that are making this challenging, and how do we start instilling that? Because I think the people listening in, entrepreneurs are disproportionately looking outside the bottle usually, because that's why they got out of the system. And when I said to you that when I think about my experience in school, is I remember sitting there, Geoff, and being like, everyone is watching this teacher talk about stuff on the whiteboard or chalkboard, and I don't know why. And everyone's just okay just listening to this person. And I just wanted to know, why are we doing this? Why? And I actually just posted today one of my riffs on YouTube of understanding life, God, and money. Because it's just like so, like I have asked two questions my whole life. Why are we here? What's the point? And like when I think about how that impacted me in school, it was like no one told me why any of this stuff mattered. And so what I learned throughout my life is that experience is the point of life, like our journey. And that is the craftsman and the creativity to truly figure out who we want to be. And what is interesting to me is knowing that why is really empowering to me now. And the why is that outcome I think you were talking about. What the outcome is, the why are we doing this?
Yes.
And then being able to tie all of the throughput to the why. And I realized, because I was looking around in school and I'm like, no, everyone's just has accepted that we're just learning this stuff. And I'm like, I haven't subscribed to this game.
Yes.
But yet now that it's flipped on its head back to the craftsman creativity, I think we're going to see the people that were thinking like that disproportionately excel. But then there's this challenge, like, how do we get everybody else to realize that it's okay to ask why when we were kind of beat into submission, that it's not okay to ask why.
You mean learning to ask the right questions?
Right. Just like you said.
There it is.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I think you could divide the line. There's those, it comes down to mindset. There are those that are growth minded and those that are fixed minded. If you've studied Carol Dweck's
great book.
work.
Yeah, great book. Yep.
Those that are growth minded see change as opportunity. Those that are fixed minded sees change as threat. Doesn't mean they're bad people. It's just the way that they're wired. And this is why I think, for me, the AI-driven leader is less of an AI book and more of a leadership book.
Mm-hmm. I
it's
love
about
that
how
framing.
how do you meet people where they're at and how do you guide them? For those that are growth minded, you double down with them. Like, yeah, this is an incredible opportunity because there's so much stuff that you do right now that, I mean, come on. Do you think you're living your highest purpose when you're checking email, bouncing from meeting to meeting, and then trying to get your to-do list done? No, you've got certain strengths that you wish you had more time to flex and harness. How about we start doing that? Like go pick, like literally this is something that somebody in our collective, which is our executive network for AI-driven leaders, they went and challenged every single person. Like this guy literally non-technical, just started. He said, I don't even know how to spell AI, joins this thing, comes in, walks out, goes into his company and says, we're going to be an AI-driven organization. And one of his people said, what does that mean? He goes, I don't know, but I'm going to lead it. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to go think about the single thing you do that brings the most value for this company. And I want you to start using AI to do it 10 times better. You got 30 days and every single person has to come and present what they chose, what they've done, what worked, where they failed, and where they need help next. It tripled his revenue in 90 days when his industry was declining by 30%.
It's all right there,
because he simply issued a challenge like that. So the growth-minded people see it as an opportunity. Fixed-minded people see it as threat. They're not bad people. But this is where you meet them where they're at by saying, hey, look, I get it. But let's talk about what your job is. It's just skills you apply and processes you follow. Were you born with the skills to do this job? No, you learned them. Were you born knowing how to follow every process? No, you learned them. There are going to be some skills you're using today that will go up in value. And there's going to be some that go down in value. And there's some that you're going to need to acquire. You're going to learn them. So let's get started. Let's start by teaching you how to even talk with AI. This is CRIT, context, role, interview, task. Just start using it once a day, every day. Let's meet once a week. Tell me where you're winning. Tell me where you're losing. Tell me where you need help, and just start guiding them. If they refuse to use it, after a week, you have the conversation. This is the future. You're going to have to use this, just like how you use the internet. Once upon a time, people resisted. Once upon a time, people resisted calculators. You must use this. Start using it every day. I expect next week when we meet that you show me how you use it. If they refuse to use it,
you're seeing your answer.
They are now making a choice. And look, I feel for those people, but this is why I said, will it replace you or will it enhance you? The choice is yours.
How do you, when I think about, okay, so I think that's a good approach. And then the way that I've done it in the past with my old family business or what I do for a living now with my clients is helping them see the outcome so then they can own the outcome. And so like when I used to like, I'm very nuanced, but I think it's an interesting example is, so the family business was copiers, and then my dad, we would sell copiers and then service them.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I started selling copiers for Xerox. That was my first job out
The
of
big
school.
red
That's
X.
where I cut my teeth in sales.
Yeah, no wonder you're a good salesperson. And then, because I heard in your book, medical device companies would all come steal our reps.
That's right. That's right.
So
I went to med sales.
Yeah. So what I used to do, just thinking about my schooling experience when I was a leader at the family business, I'd sit down and be like, here's how the copier business started. And then here's why we're molding and morphing into document management, managed IT. I helped build out kind of the new technology offering. But like once I saw that people understood why we existed, what we did, where things were going, they could take the outcomes. Because I'm a terrible manager for the micromanager. Like I've been outcome focused my whole life. And it was always, I saw it a better way of explaining to people the why. So like with me and my clients, in like the purpose of this podcast is to explain the why and the outcome. And then people can be empowered then to go, hey, I'm just going to ask this because this AI, because what I realized back to when you first saw GPT and when I jumped right in to the deep end, Geoff, I had this assumption. I was like, it just knows everything. So like my default is this thing knows better than anybody I know, because it was proven that. And so it was like, I was just watching it. So then it was like, if I just have that default assumption of it just knows, then you can it's okay that you're kind of, drifting in and out, but like you're constantly making progress. So it's like the default of, I know that this thing will have, as long as I feed it the right information and data, and then as long as I ask it the right questions.
And you fact check the answer, because it does make things up.
Yep.
You gotta recognize it's literally just predicting the next word. Like the sky is blue. It barks like a dog. What's my business plan? It will give you an answer. It's just making it up. And that's why you staying in the driver's seat matters.
100%. And I think what the driver's seat is to your point, is casting that big vision and the strategy. And there was because I've been reading a lot of philosophy lately. And I was watching Lex Friedman on Huberman's podcast recently. And they, because, Lex is a big AI guy, and they were talking about a cat. And like, have you heard this at all? Because like, it was really interesting about how humans work and like how they're trying to get this into AI, where like you could say, like everybody listening, we say, okay, show me a picture of a cat. Well, like, what is a cat? Is it a lion? Is it like a dormant house cat? Is it a barn cat? What kind of flavor, and like you start to realize like the more specific you are, the more you're going to get what you want.
Correct.
Versus saying like, if it's 4 legs in an animal, it could be a dog too.
Can I give an example of this?
Yeah, absolutely.
I realize we've been talking about using AI for strategy and strategic thinking, but we haven't actually given a use case.
Let's do it.
January of this year, I had what moment. We had launched the core of our business, which is the collective. So think of like an executive network for AI-driven leaders, where we pull like a CEO into a group of like 100 other CEOs who are all driving this in their company. Nobody's technical, but we guide them and we collaborate on all our learnings so that you stay way ahead of competition. After our offsite in January, Ryan, I got into my car and went, crap. We are scaling so much faster than I thought. Our business model is going to break this year. Not the systems. The whole business is going to collapse. The whole model is screwed because our growth will kill the system.
Mm-hmm.
I went to my AI board. I have built a custom AI board that knows my 10-year vision. It knows my strengths and weaknesses as a CEO. And I built a board that is augmented so that I can harness the strengths I personally don't have, but would need to go where I want to go in 10 years. Steve Jobs is on my board for vision, product design, storytelling. Warren Buffett is on my board for long-term planning and risk mitigation. My future self, 30 years in the future, is on the board so I can have a conversation with the man I want to become today.
That's awesome.
Wild. I went to the board, context, role, interview, task. Context. And I just started going like, Here's what's happening. Here's the growth rate. Here's where we thought we'd be. Here's where I see the whole business model collapsing. But yet I have this 10-year vision. Like, here's some things I think we need to hold on to. Here's things I'm not sure if we should hold on to or not. Like, I'm just going. Roll. Be the board. But I need you to call in the right people on the board to help me figure out how to restructure the business model to get to where we want to go over the next 10 years. Interview me. Ask me one question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context about what I haven't said that you need to know. Task, generate 100 alternative business models that I should consider that you think would have greater sufficiency to get to where we want to go in 10 years with less effort than we're applying today. It conducts an interview and it spits out 100 different business models. There's no way in my life I could come up with 100 different business models. It did it in seconds. And
So
then
cool.
I said, great. Now be the board. Imagine those hundreds just got presented to you, knowing everything you know about the company, collapse it to the top 10 that you think are most aligned with who I am as a founder. So there's founder market fit. List them in order of recommendation and tell me why you're making that recommendation. And it did it. Brian, I did all this while I was driving because I just had it in voice mode. I was just talking back and forth. You nod your head. You're like, of course. I guarantee you there's somebody who's watching or listening to this that went, what?
Yeah. Well,
you can talk to it? That business
insane,
model, the number one thing it recommended is now what we are deploying.
And like, what? Like at some point, you just go, why would you do anything other than that? And like, it's so fascinating, Geoff. So like, because of to riff on that, when I say that the owner has to clarify their goals, I say, well, like, it's at first principle, an owner of a company, of the owner operators listening, it's a person, right? So we can't just focus on the business because the business is integrated into their personal dynamics of time. Like, how do you want to be spending your time and your role? So like, the time is the biggest constraint. So we say, okay, yes, I want my role to be this. And then we go to cash flow. So it's like, okay, well, I got a salary right now of $250 and I want to get rid of my salary and I want to make $500,000 from ownership distributions. Then I want my net worth to be $5 million. And I want that $5 million to consist of, $1 million or $2 million of outside investments. And the rest of it would be the net proceeds of the sale of the company if I were to ever sell it, but I don't want to sell it. So we have this parameter now and say, okay, now, so we're literally just baking into it. And I sat on a call with a client because when their goals are clear, we can start with like on second base with the AI and say, okay, if what we want to do. So I sat down with a client, we got on the Zoom and we built out their entire business model, the forecast of the revenue, the forecast of the cash flow, the working capital. We then built out the phantom stock plan, the short-term bonus plan for the CEO that he hired. So a short-term bonus plan, we tied the phantom stock plan to his target equity valuation with normalized EBITDA to the multiple net debt and working capital. Then we built out an entire ESOP deal structure from like the debt, how much the financing is going to be, the waterfall, the internal rate of return. And like literally it was in like a half hour. To your point. And then, so now it's like, okay, we have a goal and then we can go and leverage all the advisors, but we saved like probably $40,000 of an ESOP feasibility, talking to the commercial bankers, the attorneys, but we can go use those advisors at the highest level then to validate the actual idea.
Here's what I realized in content creation or even in work in general. I feel like 80% of the work is just getting to a first draft.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I would
then
agree.
Then it's just, you got to polish it and make it right. AI gets you to a first draft in seconds or minutes, depending on how complicated. Like everything you just laid out, that could have been a 6-month-long journey that you did in 30 minutes. Was it perfect? No. I guarantee when you actually brought it to an attorney, there's things that they saw,
for sure,
but you got it 80% of the way there. You collapsed the billable hour, which is why people who operate on billable hours, their business model is going to have to change.
And it's the couple things you said there, I think that are super important. Collapsing the timeline, you mentioned that a lot in your book. And then like what I watch, Geoff, like, I talk about the family business, tragedy that I had is it's making the wrong decision sucks. And so it's the timeline, but then it's the cost of going, okay, I'm like, people are learning by talking to other people, but everybody else is giving their own unique perspective. It's like pulling out one book instead of having the 3 million, like you just said.
Yes.
So it's increasing the odds that you make the right decision and collapsing the timeline to get it to that 80% within like minutes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Now here's where most people, like the big shift that I bring in the AI-driven leader is this is not about tactical use cases. You want to focus on how to write a better email, knock yourself out. I'm probably not the guy for you. You want to use this to drive enterprise value. You want to use this to drive revenue up, EBITDA up, expand margins, fortify competitive advantage. I'm your guy. It doesn't take any more effort to use it that way versus the others. It's just how you think and how you prompt. But my biggest realization is some people go, oh, well, I don't need to get started yet. Like, I know I'm behind, but like, I'll get started eventually. This is not linear.
Right.
If you are not in action right now, and if you are not starting to use this strategically in a way that actually drives value for the business, you are realizing a compounding disadvantage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not like we get into a car and you start driving 60 miles an hour. I start an hour later and I drive 60 miles an hour and we continue at that pace for 5 hours. I'm an hour behind. That's not it. Your competition is using this and they are gaining an advantage. They are making progress ahead of you, but that progress is not linear because the progress they make this year, next year, it's going to compound and it's going to get bigger, and then it's going to compound and it's going to get bigger. But it's not that those growths aren't happening in year-long terms. They're happening in 90-day cycles, 30-day cycles, weekly cycles. It's fast. And I'm saying this from fact. I step into the room I have the largest network of C-suite executives who are actually driving this, and I see what they are doing on a regular basis. And
you're just like, how can anybody keep up?
I'm watching them go from, I don't know how to spell AI, literally, like I've never used AI, but I'm going to come in and I'm going to figure this thing out, and coming back and in 90, 120 days, making 6, 7, 8, 9-figure impacts to the business that are measurable. I did a prompt with one CEO of a Fortune 500 company. It took me 5 minutes for us to write and fully execute the prompt, including interviewing him. It saved him $300 million.
Because he would have made the wrong decision otherwise, right? I mean,
he literally would have lost $300 million that he didn't need to spend. They traded a 10 times multiple of EBITDA. Mm-hmm. That was a $3 billion shift in enterprise value in 5 minutes.
And it's what I love it. And what I've struggled, and I think you've done a really good job at, is explaining the sheer magnitude and impact of good decision making. Because you know people say like, hey, what's your ROI? And it's like, I was spending this, and it's like if I noticed that if people don't have a baseline of like what I'm currently doing and what the savings are, what you and I are talking about is we're elevating up to an outcome and then judging the savings or speed to the outcome. And that's where decision making literally is the make or break, but it's not as simple as I did an assessment, you're spending this, you're going to gain this in productivity or, savings.
No. And I think people are getting too tactical with this. What AI tool should I use for this? What app should I use for this? Wrong question. Mm-hmm. I believe there are 3 core skills you have to learn in order to use this in a way that actually drives enterprise value. 1, you yourself have to be able to identify a 20% strategic use case. 80-20 rule. What's the 20% use cases that are going to drive 80% of the results? Strategic thinking is one of them. Mm-hmm. 2, can you communicate effectively with AI? It's like a marriage. You don't communicate effectively, no happy wifey, no happy lifey. Same thing with AI. You got to learn how to communicate effectively with it, which CRIT, my framework, context, role, interview, task, will work for any use case. It'll take you to the top 1% globally of people using AI if you follow that framework. So identify a 20% strategic use case, communicate effectively with AI, and then 3, learn to stay in the driver's seat as the thought leader. Don't trust what AI tells you. When it gives you an answer, that's just the first pass. Now the conversation's beginning. Give it your feedback, then flip the role. Have it act as the challenger and stress test it. Then have it act as your customer and test it. Then have it act like Steve Jobs and make your pitch so damn compelling. It's like the release of the iPhone. I did that. It doubled our conversion rate on something. That's pretty damn strategic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Learn how to identify a strategic use case, communicate effectively with AI, stay in the driver's seat as the thought leader. Everything else, what tool for this, or how do I augment or automate this, or what about AI agents? Distraction.
Yeah, I would agree. And like trying to find people on LinkedIn or wherever of like what prompts they're using. And it's like, I watch all the prompt engineering or all the swipes on LinkedIn. I'm like, they're missing the point.
Yeah.
And you've nailed the point. And I think, one question that I have is that, data and the role that, so we talked a lot about the questions and strategic thinking, data and the inputs. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Think of it like cooking. The reason that French Laundry can charge what they charge, or any Michelin star restaurant can charge what they charge, is because there's a certain level of quality in terms of raw ingredients and artisanship that leads to a vastly superior output. You've got to be able to give AI quality to get quality. You put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. Now you can start with a baseline model like a ChatGPT or a Copilot, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, Grok, Llama. It has lots of context already from the information of the world. You giving it context on the situation you're facing in robust detail, very valuable. That's the start. Once you master that, then you start to figure out, okay, now how do I really harness data? So like that double the conversion rate. I could have gone to AI and just written CRIT and said, here's what my keynote has looked like, and here's the conversion rates and blah, 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 blah. It would have done fine, but I gave it proprietary data. I gave it actual transcripts from the last 5 keynotes I had done with actual conversion rates from them. It had 10 hours of transcript of me talking and the actual metrics of how many people were in the audience, how many people opted in, how many people closed. And I had it interview me and make suggestions. And I actually brought this to my AI board. It called on Steve Jobs to give me feedback. I didn't ask for Steve, it chose Steve. This was wild. It said, Steve walks to the center of the stage, the lights dim, but only illuminating his face. He nods his head, but does not smile because he thinks your pitch is unremarkable.
That's hilarious.
And then AI Steve Jobs starts interviewing me, asking me crazy questions that you'd like, that's exactly what he would say. And, he stumped me at one point and I said, Steve, how about we turn the tables? You have enough context. How about you pitch me my pitch as though it was the release of the iPhone? Take ultimate liberty to restructure whatever you want restructured, but I want you to just go ahead, pitch me the pitch. And he goes, great, turning the tables, let's go. And he started going. And I'm reading what it wrote, and I'm going, holy crap, this is incredible. I literally sent it to my marketing person and I said, turn this into slide formats so I can send it to my designer with actual instructions of on slide this, change it
asking
to this,
GPT to get the directions to.
And I literally reviewed it, copied and pasted, sent it to my director. Those became my updated slides. Those are still the slides I use today. That's what doubled our conversion rate. That was the power of having my personal data plus the data that was in AI.
And then you being the final synthesizer of all of it. And you said this in the Breathe Love podcast, I think, when you're talking about your book that you wrote. And 5 years ago, I tried to write a book with Scribe. And so I'm actually, since I listened to your Breathe Love podcast, and because I was already working on my content, but I've now got on draft 5 of a 280 page book. But like to use your words somehow, that however you would set them, is your fingerprints are still on it, right? Because I can't write. That was always my biggest issue. Is like, but I'm getting it out, then I'm typing it again, and it's just this constant back and forth. But you're the final author, which is why you said you're like the person listening in is the thought leader versus the thought partner.
Yeah, and to make it really practical, every word of my book is mine.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one. And I used AI to help me write every word.
Right.
So here's what I mean by that. 97% of first-time authors don't even get to a draft because it's so hard. The 3% that finish, it takes them on average 2 to 5 years to finish. I went start to finish in 5 months. Here's what that looked like. I used AI to interview me to identify the one person I was writing the book for. Now, I also hired like the best business book coach in the world.
Well, who was the book? Because I don't know if you mentioned it in that podcast.
Charlie Hone. So
okay,
he used
to
be key with Scribe. He was behind Tim Ferriss.
Yeah. Because are you familiar with the group MMT with Jason?
No.
You would really like this group.
Cool.
But that Charlie Hone, they mentioned him, and they had a Anyway,
so I hired Charlie because I just said I'm going to hire the best, and if I'm putting money one place, it's that role. Who, not how. And Charlie said, you got to write this for one person. And so I used AI to interview me to write it for one person. Agreed on it. Then I used AI to interview me to identify the value proposition for that one person. Done. I used AI to turn the value proposition into a table of contents. It was 100% wrong. But because it was wrong, it was instant for me of what was right.
Right.
Now, if I had started with a blank sheet of writing the table of contents, I would have no idea. But because it gave me something to react to, I was like, no, it's not that. It's that. Or I don't need this. This is missing. And all of a sudden I had a table of contents. I was like, oh, that's great. And then Charlie said, great, go pull 20 CEOs together on Zoom because that's who your ideal customer is. I want you to use the table of contents as talking points and do what you do best. Talk. And literally just talk stream of consciousness for an hour, 2 hours, and have your AI note taker transcribe every word. So I did. I pulled the transcript back and wrote context. I'm writing a book. This is who it's for. This is the value proposition. Here's the table of contents. Here's 2 hours of me talking about the table of contents. I want to turn this into a comprehensive outline for every single chapter of the book. Your role is to act as a New York Times bestselling author with deep expertise in business books for this specific audience. Interview me, ask me one question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context about the things that I'm trying to achieve with this book and the type of tone that I'm looking for. Task, generate a detailed chapter outline for every single chapter, adhering to this specific structure that Charlie said every chapter has to adhere to this structure. And I put that in. And it interviewed me and went, doosh.
Mm-hmm.
That was 6 months of work in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then I went through every single chapter, every single word, and started tweaking things.
Massaging it. Yep.
Then I hired a real human editor who came in and helped me restructure things. And by the end, I literally read the book out loud, read every single word. And if it didn't sound exactly like how I would say it, I stopped and I rewrote the sentence. That's how I wrote the book. Start to finish, 5 months.
And you had the vision, and you had the data and the inputs of the transcripts. And I think that's how I'm disproportionately using AI with all the transcripts and the podcasts and my coaching calls and all the trainings that I do. But I think, going back to even like C-suite executives and their roles and the data, with the process that you just walked through applies to if people are looking at numbers. And so let me give you what I actually did my training in my group call on Monday about so I'm a big proponent of, EOS has got the visionary integrator, but the way I've broken it down is like, you've got the board, which is about the investment. The CEO is responsible for the outcome of the operations for the board. Then you have the 3 top executives: Chief Revenue Officer, Chief Operating Officer, and CFO. So the Chief Revenue Officer is responsible for the strategic plan, sales and marketing, which is the customer acquisition or the customer journey. because like the whole sales and marketing being silos is absurd. And even strategy, it's like, we're going to go get revenue and land it on the income statement every single month. So what is going to impact that is the client acquisition cost of what kind of gross profit can we afford to spend to acquire this person. Here are the different main activities in the customer journey that we're going to want to do. And so back to your point, then it's like, well, we then have to put the data in to then massage it like that. And we go to the COO and it's like, well, gross profit and gross margin percentage for all product and service lines. We need to increase our throughput. And then you go over to the CFO and it's the financials and the overhead. But then it's just providing the data. And so many people's data is so junky that it's like, now I think it's kind of like you and I both grew up in sales. It doesn't exist if it's in the CRM, right? How many times have you heard that?
Now it doesn't exist.
It's not in Salesforce, but now it's like, it's not just a cliche anymore. It's like, we need the data, just like when you and I both had a panic attack when we didn't record our podcast, because the data is that important.
Yes.
Where if we know those things, then it's the data that's coming in there. How are you helping or not? How are you helping, or what kind of advice do you have for people about, people are so either fearful of giving data to different levels of people, but there hasn't really been a clear data management strategy in most companies. So how do you think about that?
Here's the fear currently that people have. They say, how do I make sure my data stays private if I'm using these models? That's their question. Like, how do I use a model that doesn't train on my data? Right question to be asking. That's the right question. First, we have to talk about what training on your data even means.
Mm-hmm.
It does not mean if you upload your financial statements into ChatGPT, suddenly you find them on Google. That's not what it means. What it means is that if one of these large language models, if it's training on your data, it means when they go to improve the model, it's one of trillions of data points that they look for patterns to make the model better.
Just like your x-ray at the hospital.
So that's where it's like, now you have to ask, okay, what's the risk of that? Let's say it's still a risk for you. Cool. Let's get a model that doesn't train on your data. You got two options, off the shelf or enterprise. Off the shelf means you go and you just create an account with one of these platforms, whether it's ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude or Gemini or Perplexity, Grok. You just create an account. Does it train on your data? To my knowledge, there are 3 today that you can get to not train on your data. ChatGPT, Teams. This is not the free version. It's
really hard to find, by the way. I have to like dig through their like product offerings to find it.
Or you go to Google and type in ChatGPT.
It's still harder than you would think. Like, but yeah,
it's number one.
Okay, maybe it's gotten easier than the last month. But like they want, like, yeah. Anyways, keep going.
So if you're using a product that's free, the product is not the product. You're the product. You got to pay for it. Even the $20 a month version still trains on your data, but you can. There is a way to turn it off. Just do a Teams account, because then this is what we have. Then I enter the email for every person in my company, and it establishes a mini instance. And anything that's done in an AI leadership account, it doesn't train on the data. And then we can start sharing things across users, which is really cool. Copilot has the same option at $30 a month. Claude has the same option. Those are options of ones you like right now, effective immediately. Like you can squash it today. If you are an enterprise and that's not good enough for you, you go enterprise, which means you essentially host one of these tools on your own server. You have an IT team that builds a walled garden so everything is truly locked down. You can do that. That is the ultimate security. Minimum investment right now is 6 figures to start with that. You're a bigger company. That's nothing, and it's absolutely
but to your point, like I'm looking over here at my Teams, it says GPT can make mistakes. OpenAI does not use Ryan Tansom LLC workspace data to train its models, and that's what it says right at the bottom of Teams. So to your point,
there you go. So now you have to ask the question: do you believe them? There are plenty of people.
Everyone's listening, anyways, right?
Yeah. Then do you believe them? If you don't, then it's a risk-reward conversation. Is there a risk of using it and that they violate their terms of conditions and that they use your data to train their model? Sure. What's the risk if you don't use it?
Yeah, fair.
And this is where the compounding disadvantage comes in. We have chosen to move forward and we use it. I feed it my financial statements. It acts as a strategic CFO. It interviews me every month to help me see the things I don't see as a CEO that I should see about as a CEO about my business. It knows my strategic plan. It knows our 10-year vision. It knows my strengths and weaknesses. This thing calls out stuff that is so damn valuable that it helps me see what I can't see.
I want to get real tactical for a second, because I'm curious, or like, for people like you and I, or the people that are listening in, where like I think about the sheer amount of information that I want it to have. So like what my, I'll just kind of geek out for like my workflow process right now. So you ever heard of Obsidian?
No.
So Obsidian is like the Evernote competitor, but Obsidian resides on your computer, and it saves all of your notes and text files. So you can literally come out and, like grab it all, and you can link it all together. It actually creates a neural network of all your ideas. Really cool, dude. You would really like it, Geoff. But so like I am using GPT. I've got projects in the Teams version. So I got projects for like either like my book or my content, or like, content categories, or a client. So the project is a good container. You can upload client or files into the project and directions. Yeah.
A project is a fancy word for a folder inside of ChatGPT, where within that folder, there's custom instructions and source documents, so that any chat you have within that folder will have that baseline context.
Yep. Thank you for that. That's helpful for the listeners. And what I noticed, because I asked GPT, what's the best way to use you? And I was like, and it's like, well, the project folders, or the project files are more like long-term memory, so it doesn't recall them all the time, which I thought was very fascinating. So it actually taught me how to use it, which is each chat session. And then I'll actually like run out of a chat session where it's like, it actually errors out. I copy and paste 600 words or 600 pages, and I put it in my Obsidian, and then I say, here are my last 3 chat sessions. Because what I've ran into is like how expansive and depth I have with my material. There is still not like this, and maybe it's an enterprise value, but or something where it's like a full long-term memory, where it still has a little bit of limitation of like, okay, saving documents or like source truth. So what I end up doing, Geoff, is like accumulating, like, there's a lot of that like revisions. And then I'm like, okay, this is my strat plan, or then this is and then I finally get that. And then I use that as like part of the document and your archive folder. So it's like this constant refinement of clean information to then get to the ability to then get it started as fast as possible. Any 2 cents on that?
I'm wondering if what you're doing is a priority or a distraction.
In what way?
This is literally how I see the world when it comes to AI. There's the 20% that drives the 80%. And then there's 80% that only drives the 20%. And this is genuine curiosity, not judgment. I'm asking, is this a 20%? What does this do for you that helps you drive revenue, drive EBITDA, drive customer retention?
For me, with my book, it's the ideas are all interconnected, and to have one part of it, it can't be the thought partner that I want unless it has the full context. So for me specifically, that's where, because my ideas and what I'm trying to do is unique to like how I see the world. It's like, I would notice that it's missing certain things to do to be the thought partner. In other use cases with clients, it doesn't have to be that complicated, I don't think.
Cool. This is where, and I asked that was the genuine question I had for you, but it's also a good example for everybody else.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Anytime you're using AI,
why are you doing this?
Why are you doing this? Does
the
this
one thing
matter? Does this matter? Yeah. If I focus on this, is this a 20% priority that's going to drive 80% of the results? Now, I'm hearing you saying having sufficient context, organized and structured correctly is going to allow you to write a better book. I buy that one, because I also understand the power of a good book for a company. And my next question is, how do you establish some guardrails so that you get it good enough so that it delivers the results, and then you get back to growing the business?
And that's what, so I'll answer how I decided to go about that, was coming up with pillar, like, it's the whole, the rock, pebbles, sand, water thing, where like, I create the pillar shit. And then it's like, boom, I nailed that puzzle piece. And then that can accelerate so like, instead of trying to, what I realized I was doing wrong is I was trying to tackle the whole thing at once and there wasn't enough context, to your point. So then I was like, I need to build the building blocks. And then I'm like, here's all of it. And it's like, whoa, now it's like, holy shit. And it was back to the power of having the data and the context. Cool. So how I started doing it was, and I think that kind of goes back to your projects or the folders of having it, stuff segmented so you could get the highest level chunk of finance, the highest level chunk of operations, the highest chunk of or document of strategy.
I buy it.
Because I'm always second guessing. I'm like, okay, there's got to be a better way. But then what I think you'd laugh at it. Then the moment that I'm second guessing myself, guess what I do? I ask you, yeah. Do you think this is the right? I'm like, should I have the deep research? It's like, no, you don't need the deep research right now. I'm like, okay, good. And so it's
Well, you said something and we skipped over it pretty quickly, but I think it's actually important. If you don't know how to use AI, ask AI.
I know, it's hilarious.
It's pretty meta, but it will actually teach you.
Where do you think this, like, back to the compounding of businesses and how fast they're going to grow and outcompete everybody?
Yeah.
Where do you see the LLMs going and like how this is all going to unfold? I mean, I don't even know how far we can see into the future with this, but what are your thoughts about where things are going?
I don't think that much about it. I think a little bit about it through a very specific lens, and the rest of it I don't worry about, because again, this is how I see the world. If I'm going to invest my time searching for that answer, what return will it bring? So there's some investment of time required there because I am a thought leader in this space. So like I do have a vision of where I think things can go one way or another, and I'll talk about that. But all the other stuff, I just don't even worry about it. I get back to how can we start harnessing this now in a way that works? And how can I teach the right people how to start harnessing this in a way that drives enterprise value and builds a competitive advantage? I think of it through the lens of people and work. When I was studying the impact of the internet, I came to social media. We've never been more connected and more disconnected. The amount of harm that this has delivered to people and our children in terms of depression, suicide, how disconnected, how addicted we are. Does it bring value? Sure. Does it bring harm? Yes. But my realization, we abdicated our responsibility as leaders with social media. We got out of the driver's seat into the passenger seat until the point that we got out of the car and threw ourselves in the trunk and said, there's nothing we can do. They're too powerful. I do think we've learned from that, and people are asking smarter questions this time around. I'm like, how do we protect our data? They didn't think about that with social media.
Yeah.
But I'm asking the question, how do we keep humanity at the center?
I love it.
And this is where it's a call for leadership. And I realize we have to create a new category of leader, which is an AI-driven leader. And this is somebody who harnesses the technology to create better leaders, better businesses, and better lives. It is not just about how do I create a more valuable company. It's about how do I enhance my leaders, how do I enhance the value of my business, and how do I position my business in a way that enhances humanity overall. I do think, I think if you go back to before the mobile device, when people left work, they actually left work. When people went on vacation, they actually went on vacation. But the moment we started carrying a cell phone around is the moment we started carrying work around and sacrificing personal life. Do I think we're going to be living in a world where we will be working 40, 50, 60 hours a week? Maybe. I think the output of people who put in those hours is going to be exponentially higher beyond what you can even. I could tell you a number now and you wouldn't even think it's credible. You just wouldn't think it's credible. I also think there will be people that don't work 5 days a week. I think there will be people that have tons of free time to enjoy hobbies, and they can make a decent living and work to live, not live to work. Is that such a bad thing? I don't think so.
I think you've used this word a couple times. At least in your book, it amplifies who we are and the decisions that we're making.
Yes. If you adopt the right mindset and start learning how to harness the technology to deliver that result. Now, let me show you the other side. One of my daughter's close friends was over, and her dad came in, and I had like a stack of 100 books on my kitchen table that I was signing for an event. And he goes, "You wrote a book about AI?" I go, "Yeah, it's doing pretty good." And he goes, "That scares the crap out of me." And I went, "Really? Why?" And he said, "Well, I don't work anymore because I'm on disability, but my partner does. And he processes payroll. AI is going to take his job." And I said, I agree. The skills he is currently harnessing, the processes he is following, I absolutely agree. AI is going to make that obsolete. But I do think he's going to do what he always did. I think he will learn new skills, and he will have a job that is harnessing different skills and following different processes. And his reaction to me was, "Oh no, he's in his 60s. He's not interested in learning anything new." Brian, I
rough.
was furious. Like,
and what a choice.
My blood was boiling on the inside. One, I care about his daughter. And two, growth is my core value. So like it's a conflict with who I am as a person, but it's like it was so clear to me, if that's true, what he said is true, that person is making a choice. They are choosing to not grow. They are choosing to not evolve. And if you look at life, not just humans, life overall, life beings that did not evolve ultimately went away.
Insert Darwin. Yeah.
So now let me say, I have empathy to a point. I have empathy for people to the start. I get that there's fear, and it oftentimes is because they don't know where to start or how to use this. I am here to turn the lights on for people so that they can see how they can use this in a way that enhances them. If you learn how to use this and you choose not to get started, I have empathy for a window of time. But if you
well articulated,
if you continue to attach yourself to the way things used to be, rather than reimagine who you can become so you can have a greater future than you had a past, you are making a choice. I wish you well. I feel for you, and I hope you wake up.
And I think that's well said. And you brought up a stat that I took to heart, because Bold in Abundance by Peter Diamandis. The whole, like, there was 40% of the workforce that was tied to the egg industry, and now it's 1.5.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this has happened.
People? Are they out of work? No, they got different jobs.
Yeah.
What happened to all the scribes that used to write things by hand when the printing press came out? They got new jobs. What happened to all the guys who used to walk down the street with a torch with fire at the end, lighting oil lanterns on fire so you had light at night? When the light bulb came out, they got different jobs. It's the same thing that's always happened. There will be different skills you acquire, different processes. And by the way, 5 years from now, let's say you're with the same company. Let's say you have the same title. I guarantee you the skills you apply and the processes you are following in 5 years will be different than they are now.
Mm-hmm. So how do people go from 0 to 1?
I'm going to give you something real simple. Maybe the simplest homework you've ever been given. Do not let the simplicity of what I'm about to show you undermine the significance of it. I have literally, in the last 9 months, 70 to 100,000 people have learned about this. I see 5 posts a day on LinkedIn from people I don't even know commenting on this. I want you to grab 2 sticky notes and a Sharpie. That's your homework. 2 sticky notes and a Sharpie. Simple enough. Here's why it's significant. On sticky note number 1 with your Sharpie, write the question, how can AI help me do this? How can AI help me do this? And for those listening, I'm literally holding up my sticky note that says,
it's yellow.
How can AI help me do this? I have it. It's yellow. Second sticky note, it says context, role, interview, task, crit. I personally have these 2 sticky notes on my desk to the point that I literally am holding them up to the camera right now. When my cleaner comes every week, it's fun. We play a fun game called hide and seek. He hides my sticky notes. I find them. I put them back. Why? Because every day I'm doing something the old way, where I'm doing it based on my own human processing power and the things that I've learned. And I look down and I see that sticky note and it reminds me, it's tough to read the label when you're inside the box. Literally happened today, Ryan. I was working on updating a slide deck and I'm like trying to rewrite the slide. And I looked down and saw the sticky note. I was like, damn it, Geoff, why am I trying to come up with the content? Took a screenshot of the slide, pasted it in AI, gave it the context of what the purpose of the slide is and where I think it's insufficient. Role, be the best slide creator. Interview me, ask me 1 question at a time, 2 questions to gain deeper context. Task, regenerate what the structure and content for this slide should be so that the CEO would see it and think it's compelling. The stuff it came up with was so vastly superior to what I could have come up with on my own. Like physically could not have come up with anything that good. Updated the slide. Every day this happens to me and I wrote the book. So you want to go from 0 to 1?
Behavior, right?
Yeah. You want to go from 0 to 1? Use it once a day, every day. And I guarantee you in 30 days, you'll be playing at a different level.
And just as a final add to that, what I think could be an interesting way for people to get get their muscles warmed up is the personal stuff. I mean, for meal planning for us, Geoff, or scheduling. You know what? The thing I was actually just talking about with a couple of people this week, because the healthcare system is such a effing dumpster fire in the US, is I had a guy. So I'll speak on my own behalf, but I have a couple of people going in my life that are going through health issues.
Yeah.
And there's multiple hacks in here that I thought were super cool. I took all of my blood work, and I'm generally a healthy person. So I took all my blood work from multiple years, and I don't even know what any of these words mean, right? It's like red, yellow, green. I'm like, okay, according to what standard? I took all of my blood or all of my tests, put it into a project inside of GPT. And then I said, here's what I want you to do. My goal is to have the most energy I possibly could have. Naturally, because I need more. Everybody listening in obviously thinks that. So what I did is I said, okay, I'm already on these supplements. I gave the Amazon links to the supplements I currently on. I'm like, here's my routine. Here's what I'm eating roughly. And I said, I'm looking at this momentous supplement company that Andrew Huberman supports because it's clean supplements. I'm paralyzed. I had for 9 months a shopping cart where I'm like, I just don't know what to buy. And I said, and it engineered an entire daily routine supplement stack. And I got people reviewing the Mayo doctor or the Mayo lab results because they can't see their doctor for 6 months. So I say that for a word of encouragement for people. If you're still fearful about the business side, try it on your personal side, because all the questions that we have answers for are right there.
Let me show you this. So I did something similar. I am working with a functional doc, and I went ahead and built a personal health coach. So it's got custom instructions where it has to act as a expert physical trainer, nutritionist, and psychologist whose expertise is rewiring someone's identity to align with their long-term health and longevity goals. Here you go. So let's look at last night. So every day, I'm supposed to eat 180 grams of protein a day. So I literally tell it what I eat every day, and it tracks for me what I'm eating and what my delta is and everything else. I'm trying to find.
While you're pulling it up, you know what I'm doing, Geoff? Is this another hack? And I know we're a little over time here. Is on YouTube, you can go down into the YouTube of any YouTube video and see
pull the transcript. Yep.
So I actually pull all of the Huberman transcripts and the Peter Attia transcripts, and there was a neuroscience scientist on Chris Williams recently. I'm pulling all the transcripts, adding those into GPT, saying
it's failing right now.
Yeah, it's okay. It's what a fun time to be alive, man.
Long story short, anything you want is possible. Get ready.
Where can they find you? What's the best place?
AIleadership.com is the website. The book is The AI Driven Leader. You can find it Amazon, Kindle, Audible. If you are a CEO or C-level leader, you don't have to be technical, but if you want to really start driving this in the company, I would check out AI Leadership. The collective is the network, and we also do some advisory with very specific types of clients, but you can reach out to us. I would if you do take, if you buy the book and you email a receipt to book@aileadership.com, I have a prompt library in the book. It's probably 40 pages of highly sophisticated strategic prompts. I'll send it to you automatically.
Geoff, thank you so much for your time, man. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan.